it takes a lot of self-reflection and sort of self-analysis to really be in tune with the person who you are in the world and to present that to the world and to stand by it, even when you're under duress, you know.
Welcome to How to Fail, the podcast that believes that most failures can teach us something meaningful. If you've been blown away by a piece of television over the last few years, the chances are pretty high that it featured Adeel Akhtar. Perhaps you watched his BAFTA winning performance in Sherwood, playing a hapless, accidental criminal who killed his son's wife, where Akhtar carried out the impossible trick of making you root for his character. Maybe you've seen him in Back to Life or The Night Manager, or perhaps you were one of the 90 million viewers of Netflix's Fool Me Once, and you saw Akhtar playing a rumpled detective experiencing unexplained blackouts. When I watch him, it's as though he reaches into the heart of what it is to be human and squeezes it. Now, he's taking his talents to the stage, about to appear in the Don Ma's new production of The Cherry Orchard. Chekhov's Russia is a far remove from Akhtar's own upbringing. Born to a Pakistani father and a Kenyan mother who met while working at Heathrow Airport, he grew up in a Buckinghamshire village where he recalls having stones thrown at him as a child. He went to boarding school in Cheltenham, then began a law degree before dropping out to retrain at the Actors Studio Drama School in New York. His breakout role was as a bumbling Muslim extremist in Chris Morris's satirical movie Four Lions in 2002. 15 years later, Akhtar won the lead actor BAFTA for the one-off BBC drama Murdered by My Father. Astonishingly, he was the first non-white actor to take the gong. And although these days his career is clearly in the ascendant, he seems never to take that success for granted. When he was once asked about the most important lesson life had taught him, Akhtar replied that it's never completely amazing and never completely terrible. More often, it's all right. Adeel Akhtar, welcome to How to Fail.
Yeah, thanks. Wow. I've never had people read of... That's brilliant, yeah. Yeah, wow. It's just, that's what we got a gun for, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And with that delivery, we're all right.
We're all right.
Yeah.
I also think there's something really profound about expectation wrapped up in that. Because if we simply expect things to be all right rather than unadulterated bliss every second of the day, we actually end up being happier.
Yes. There's a sort of pressure to sort of live from your joy.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And that's, especially now when we're sort of made to feel like there's not much that we should be complaining about. There's been lots of improvements in sort of the world and, you know, mortality and all these sorts of things. But there's a lot more complications as well. And so we have to, I think we just got a gun for all right, because then when you do, those moments of joyous bliss sort of catch you in moments as opposed to it being this sort of continuum of feeling.
Let's talk about imperfection.
Okay.
Because I was chatting to you before we started recording about how I watched Sherwood on a long-haul flight and how your performance, thinking of it even now, has the capacity to make me well up. It was such a heartbreakingly astonishing performance. For me, anyway. Don't know what it was like for you. Yeah. And I think what you do so beautifully in all of your characters, whether you're making us weep with empathy or piss ourselves laughing, you manage to uncover something about the flawed nature of trying to do your best.
Mm.
Can you relate to that? Is that where it comes from?
I can relate to that, because I think the thing that really grabs my heart is people's reach for something. And that sort of endeavour always either makes me really laugh because it's mismatched, you know, people in a particular state, you know, and they're sort of reaching for something that's beyond them. And sometimes that can be quite funny, you know. And other times it can be heartbreakingly tragic. So it's people's effort in trying to be better.
It's the gap between the yearning and the getting.
Yeah, and that liminal space that we're all in, if we're honest. We're just... somebody described it once as yearning and love. And he used this analogy of like an open horizon. And yearning is traveling in a boat and going towards the horizon, but nothing orientating you. Just keep on going. And love, I feel like I'm going to... love being something that orientates you, something that you aim for.
When you won your BAFTA for your performance in Sherwood,
yes,
you said in your acceptance speech that it felt a little bit like a miracle.
Yeah.
Why did it feel like that?
Why did it feel like that? I suppose I was sort of comparing myself to when I first started acting, when I first started looking at becoming an actor, or when I was a kid watching TV for the first time, And I just maybe a few days before come back from an event celebrating Mira. So she won the sort of fellowship, not fellowship, but the big old award.
Mira Sayal.
Mira Sayal.
Yes.
I haven't got that name, but it was like that. It was like an award just to be like, you've done so much great work. That BAFTA.
Yes.
And I had just come back from that maybe like a few days before, and I was in this wave of sort of being in a room full of lots of brown people who are just in radio and TV and film and really high up in radio. Some people are not really high up in radio, so really high up in producing and channels and Netflix and and all just across the board. And so for all of us to be in that room together, and then as I was accepting that speech, just seeing Mira in the front row there, I mean, it was very much felt very miraculous.
Yeah. Fool Me Once.
Yeah.
Massive stonking hit.
It's gone well. It's gone well.
It's gone pretty well, hasn't it, Adeel?
Oh, yeah. That has, yeah.
Where is your starting point when you get a script and you're asked to play a character? What's the first thing that you do after reading the script in order to prepare?
Yeah. When I first started, I thought there was a lot of work involved in having to sort of characterise something. And not that there isn't a lot of work involved, but I used to burden myself with a lot of stuff that I'm not sure was very necessary. But now it's something's very sort of right here. Like I don't have to travel too far to find where the emotional truth is of that character, because I just go, well, I'm just going to do my version of that, and I hope that's all right.
Right. So you find the emotional truth, and then you tap into an experience of that same emotion in your own life.
I went to a sort of very sort of methody school, and I think when I was young, I thought there had to be an emotional equivalent to, you know what I mean, like sort of living the part of the character. And now I realise that, you know, once I sort of step back from that a little bit, there's ways of tapping into a character where you don't need that lived experience of that particular character. I have an equivalent. I have a sort of area of understanding that can, you know, still serve the character.
Is Michelle Keegan really lovely?
Oh my good God. What a lovely woman.
Lovely,
Such
beautiful,
a lovely, beautiful.
Great coats. There was a whole TikTok thing about her coats.
I saw, yeah. She was the first person to arrive on set and last person to leave generally because she had so much to do. And not once did she not smile and was ready to chat and ready to be a bit silly. Just a wonderful person to work with.
Talking of that feeling of a sense of miraculous occurrence when you got your BAFTA and you looked at Mira Sayal and you saw it reflected back to you, reminds me of a story from your life that seems like it would be scripted.
Yeah.
Which is when you were flying to New York and you were mistaken for an extremist.
Yeah.
And shortly afterwards, that's when you got the role in Chris Morris's Four Lions.
Yeah.
Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, sure. My girlfriend at the time was auditioning for drama school in New York, and she said, do you want to be my scene study partner? Basically, when you're a scene study partner, you have your back to the audience, but you're sort of making that person shine. But as I was flying over to do that in Heathrow, they took my passport and they said I would get it returned back to me when I arrived at JFK. When I arrived at JFK, it was like sort of convoys of vans, FBI sort of people coming out, and then handcuffed and then questioned, and then later released, and then did the audition, came back, and was going to start my LPC, my legal practice certificate sort of thing. And then the drama school phoned me up and said, would you like to take a place at this drama school? And I went with my girlfriend. We ran away. We just were like, this is. We went back to New York, and I took a place at that drama school. But that was my sort of introduction to New York, and that sort of quite harrowing part of it. They thought I was somebody that I wasn't. I have quite a profound understanding on that now, because, you know, my job is to enact lots of different types of people. And in those characters that I've had to play, there's always the tension between somebody who's trying to limit that person in some way. Mm. It takes a lot of self-reflection and sort of analysis to really be in tune with the person who you are in the world, and to present that to the world, and to stand by it, even when you're under duress, you know.
There's something about that story that is so chilling. And I can only imagine how terrifying it must have been for you at the centre of it, because it's about lack of agency and lack of control. Mm. And you've done such a profound job of expressing what that means to you as a person. Mm-hmm. But I also imagine that it's so difficult being in a situation where there's just no recourse.
Sure.
It must have been horrible.
Yeah, it was horrible, because you're trying to express an actual truth about yourself. And that truth is being not believed. But there's no higher stakes situation, because if that person doesn't believe that truth that you're trying to say, then, I mean, we're talking about times of Guantanamo and stuff like this. Looking back on it, the stakes couldn't have really been higher. What it taught me was to draw parallels between that, what I've just described to you, and how people are in the world anyway. And it makes the thing that you experience, which was, like you said, really difficult and painful and scary, makes it less difficult and less painful and less scary, because we've all got our own versions of that, you know.
It does explain so much about how you get audiences on side in spite of a character acting in ways that are not immediately sympathetic or that seem outright horrifying in other contexts, because you manage to convey on some level that the character is in conflict with the truth of who they are. And there's something so beautiful about being drawn back like a tide because of your flaws and imperfections, and you're constantly trying to be better, and yet you're denying what makes you you at the same time, which is absolutely the premise of this podcast.
Sure.
That it's so much better to be honest about our flaws.
Mm-hmm. With the little bit of writing I'm doing at the moment, this thing is just always coming into my brain. It's like creating space and holding space. And so often we're sort of told to fill that space with ideas and words and our opinions, you know, and sometimes it's cool just to write down your opinion, fold it up, put it in your back pocket, sit on it for a bit, and just create space for yourself to work out whether that opinion is worth sharing in that moment or not.
Let's get on to your first failure, which is failure at school. What was your upbringing like in that Buckinghamshire village where you had stones thrown at you?
Yeah. So I was born in Hounslow, and then mum and dad moved to the suburbs because it was just a sort of nicer home with a garden and things. So that's what we did when I was young. My mum and dad wanted the sort of best education they could get for me, and they worked really hard and saved a lot of money to send me to sort of private school, and eventually went to a boarding school in Cheltenham. This sort of common thread through all that was just being sort of minority. And the sort of stone throwing thing was looking on it, and it charitably could have just been kids messing around being kids. Looking at my experience back then, at the very least, I'll go, oh, that's strange. You know what I mean? Without having to sort of write a massive essay on it or anything. It's a bit weird, you know?
Yeah, I totally understand that in certain respects, in that when the Me Too movement happened for women,
right?
I definitely looked back at my life and thought, well, I'm lucky because I've never been the victim of any form of sexual harassment and definitely not assault. So I'm fine. And then actually I looked at what other people were saying Me Too about. And I was like, oh no, I've experienced that. But so much of it was an expectation that there was a price to be paid for admission into this world that didn't belong to me, that was run by the men. And I can only imagine how much more acute that might feel as a visible minority in your Buckinghamshire village and your private school. That actually it's the institution that gaslights you. It's the society that gaslights you. And it takes a really long time to unpack what might have happened.
Yeah. I suppose so. And if you're up for unpacking it as well, I sort of understood that I was a minority, and I understood that there's a world, an institution that works in a particular way. And the thing that can undercut all that is to find the thing that you love, work out the thing that was always there, which is like, oh, I've got this desire to communicate with people and want to find connections with people.
But you felt you failed at school. And So talk me through the elements of that failure, because you must have felt a sense of responsibility as well. Your parents had worked so hard to earn this money to send you to this prestigious private school. Yeah. What happened?
Like, these are the people I always gravitate to anyway. It's like the people who sort of outliers. So I was just not very good, just not very clever at school.
But you're very, very clever.
Yeah.
So why were you? Why did it? Was it just not the right kind of environment?
Maybe not the right kind of clever, which is fine. And so then, from a young age, I had this sort of tension of going, well, that will keep my mum and dad very happy, and actually they've worked really hard. So there's a lot of guilt involved in pissing around, but I couldn't help not pissing around.
What was the naughtiest thing?
I was very good at not getting caught smoking cigarettes. And I was very good at, when I did get caught, my face looked really sorry for itself.
That's your early training, isn't it?
I wasn't even trying to train. I was just scared of my dad. So as soon as like anybody was like, do you want to tell your dad? I would just be like, I would just revert back to like the way my face would sit, which is like, oh, fuck, that's the worst thing in the world. I remember there was a bunch of us that we found Harold Pinter. I was 16, 17. We found the Homecoming, Harold Pinter, that's the Homecoming. And we had this tiny little space, about as big as this. And we had like a light on. And we put some chairs down. We put a production of the Homecoming on. And I was listening to Arab Strap at the time, this band, Arab Strap. And I remember when I first heard this song, first big weekend of the summer, it's like, music is just like something when you sort of get turned on to music for the first time. And I realized back then it was like, oh yeah, music is happening. I'm really enjoying Harold Pinter, and I don't really understand it fully, but it's great. Again, like searching for those moments of going, oh, what was that? I mean, the other stuff in the way of that, you know, being a minority and like having to sort of battle against lots of things to be heard and stuff like that's, you know, then and important things to reckon with. But that stuff can sort of break through a lot of the problems and complications.
Did you fail your exams? How did you do?
I was just really, I was that annoying person in school who was really mediocre. So I would have got like C's, maybe like a few B's at GCSEs. But they made me a monitor or something. And like I got a little monitor's badge. I'm not even a prefect, a monitor. And if somebody put a monitor, I took that very seriously to the point where it was almost laughable. Do you know what I mean? I sort of knew how seriously I was taking it, but it was the first time somebody was like, here's a badge. It's like, well, guys, you know, there's no running in the corridors. So if we can...
Do you think that came from your dad? Do you think you were trying to be a bit like your dad?
A little bit, yeah. Maybe just a tiny civil servant. Not that he's a civil servant, he's a lawyer, but, you know, that kind of like... My wife jokes now that even when I go to a beach, it looks like a civil servant from the 60s, just like their sort of trousers rolled up and like, why didn't you bring your shorts?
You mentioned that your dad's a lawyer.
Yeah.
And you went to do law at university. This is still wrapped up in your first failure.
Yeah. Oh.
And you mentioned at the beginning that you dropped out of that law degree in order to become an actor.
Yeah.
How difficult was it for you wrestling with what your dad's expectation of what you should be doing might have been?
So his dad was a lawyer. So it's almost like a blacksmith, within the Asian world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But not the smith part. It's just like, and so you just do what you sort of do what you're told, and you don't question it. So I remember coming back with my UCAS form. My dad essentially sort of filled it out for me. He was just like, no, you're doing this sort of thing. And then this opportunity came to just run away to New York and do this drama school stuff. And he wasn't angry, just shouting at me or whatever. He did initially. And then after a while, he just kind of emotionally became absent. And now with the advantage of like looking back on my life now, so a bit older, my dad now got a 7 and a 5-year-old. And looking back on, I don't know if it's like my acting brain or whatever, but there's not much that they could present me with where I wouldn't be like, you're the center of my world, you're loved, everything's okay, sort of thing. But I imagine there might be. And for my dad, that was me presenting him with something that wasn't very easily understandable. And something he couldn't help me with, because help was an expression of his love. So he couldn't. Yeah, I know. So he couldn't. I don't know where we're both going now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's because when I watched you,
we've got the pink microphones. We've got to have a bit of a laugh. Come on.
Okay.
Oh.
I promise we'll get into the jokey section next.
Yeah, sure.
Is your dad still alive?
Yeah, he is.
He is, okay.
But all that to say, his expression of love was to help, and then he just didn't know how to love me in the right way, basically. So I know now, and now we're just going to land this emotional plane. We're a lot better. We have this sort of easy understanding with each other now. And maybe it is because I'm a dad now, and because he looks at his grandchildren in a way that he realizes all he had to do was just hold that space, just be. There was nothing to do, really. He just had to sort of be there with them, and they're going to love him like I do. So it's just, he didn't have to do much,
So beautiful.
Ugh.
Thank you, Adeel. Is your mum great?
Yeah, she's brilliant.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
I can talk more about that. Just quickly, the thing about my mum is just, she, the life that I was living wasn't very easily understandable to her. Not very, but she's been to see from New York, tiny little black box avant-garde theatre-y world to all the things. She's just been there throughout, seen every performance. There's something deeper going on there, which is like you have to work beyond your understanding of what it is. That it's just always been a support.
You actually said something in a past interview about cultural assimilation at the level that your parents did being the ultimate act of creative expression, which I'd never read before, and I thought it was so profound. And even if they couldn't understand the choice you were making career-wise, maybe actually you get your talent for creativity from them in a very beautiful way that they perhaps don't see themselves, but that's maybe where it's from. I
think so. I think it's from them, but it also allowed me to see that in other people. I recently finished this book by this woman called Elif Batuman. She wrote this book called The Idiot, and it was a funny book because she's in this book she's sort of 19 and she's disassembling the idea of like high art and literature, whatever, because The Idiot was written by Dostoevsky, and that's like freaking brilliant, But she talks about the presentation of the well-made novel to a person, denies them and steals that person who's receiving the well-made novel of their artistic process. Because in the presentation of the well-made novel, what they're not allowing you to do in your process or our process is to write a shitty diary or something, or write a autofiction, or screw up the margins. And there's an appetite for people now just to smash it all together, you know, what's good and bad and what's high art and low, you know, just to put it and present it and go, that's the most crystalline piece of truth I can present.
There's truth in the messiness. Your second failure is that early on you had lots of failures as an actor.
Yeah.
And you were out of work for years.
Yes.
And at the time it felt like, in your words, you were failing at life. How bad did it get?
Pretty bad. I mean, pretty bad. Like, I mean, late 20s, early 30s, not working. I don't know, a bit depressed and a bit unhappy with it all, because I think all the things that I'm talking about now up until this point, I sort of always have believed. You know, I've always believed that, you know, the idea that people's imperfections are really beautiful and they're really great. And at that time I was like, I think I was investing a lot in that and sort of being, you know, just trying to present all of me but it was as if the industry and, you know, the thing that my desired sort of career path didn't really want it. Felt a little bit like a rejection.
What were you being told at auditions that you failed?
I mean, I just wasn't getting anything. And so that just went on and on and on. But again, like looking back on that, and I'm doing a spot of writing now, I think it is a kind of a really beautiful metaphor for sitting with creativity in a way, you know, the obstacles that you sort of find. And we can sit with that discomfort because eventually we know we're going to settle in a place where the thing that we're doing is going to have an artistic expression of sorts. In your life, you don't know that. In your life, you are on that sort of, that big horizon of yearning. And I was in that spot. I was just going, what's happening? Where am I going? What's happening here, you know?
Is it true that you ended up living in a van?
Yeah. So basically, I had a little bit of money and I thought I could just make that last a lot longer if I just lived in my van for a bit, yeah.
What kind of van?
It was an LT VW, but it's not like one of those sexy VWs, 90s. It was like a really boxy 1980s. I mean, if you saw me in it, it would have been funny because it was so massive and I'm not the biggest guy in the world. So it looked like I was driving like a heavy, like a long goods vehicle or something. And it was all converted on the inside. And it was great. I mean, again, it was fun until it wasn't fun. Used to go to a lot of festivals. A mate of mine did this thing called Folk in a Box. We used to set up this little box in different festivals. And then you'd sit down and you'd have this one-on-one sort of folk song with this person. And I was living with the box.
Were you hiding that from your parents?
They kind of knew. Again, like they had this... Okay, so I've just described my mum. So my mum's the sort of woman who's sort of gone to like Worcester Street in New York and seen me do some really avant-garde theatre and try and, you know, that's more mine, but you know what I mean. And I think she sort of got it. She understood what was happening, but there was a deeper wisdom of sorts in her, which was just like, is he all right? Just on a basic, is he all right? Fine, then he's fine. My dad was just like, just couldn't understand what was happening. It was like... And then because it was so overwhelming for him, he sort of distanced a little bit more, going, I just don't get what's going on here, you know, because I was just, like most of us are, just searching and trying to find what I was supposed to do. What
was the worst audition you ever had?
I mean, it's not funny now, and it is sort of funny, but it's also a little bit like, oh, grating now I'm thinking about it. But I was in New York, so I had like one job where I had to put on an Indian accent. And I had to sit, so that was like a really shit one. Now looking back on it, it was a shit one. But times have changed now. I don't think anybody's going to ever ask you to do that ever again. But there was like a sort of a few of them, you know, where like before when you turn around and you go, oh, that was weird. That wasn't one that you'd say that was weird. That was just like, oh, that's shit. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Less weird and more like, oh, that's shit. But thankfully, it feels like those are less and less now. We're sort of entering a time where people have got the appetite for seeing you in a sort of different way than how they once, so the sort of casting or the idea of you playing a particular type of role used to be very narrow. And maybe that's the miracle thing that we were talking about with Mira when I was seeing Mira. we've sort of widened our aperture of what we can see and what we are able to accept from people who we thought could only do one particular type of thing or one particular type of role.
Before we get on to your final failure, how did Four Lions come about then? Was it just another one of these auditions that you thought,
Yeah,
put
good
myself
question.
through
I
it?
don't know. I think it might have been an audition. All I can remember is doing it and it being the time going by so quickly because I loved Chris Morris. I loved everything that he did. At that time, it was kind of arguable whether there was any satire before him. Maybe that's pushing it. Maybe, I don't know. But it felt like that because he was just like, he was just super sharp focus on the types of stories he wanted to tell. And I just remember wanting to please him and just to get this thing right. I mean, I put a lot of effort into just trying to get it right. And now looking back on it, the moments of realization where that film really worked was just the really silly bits, right? It was like, I mean, the introduction of it obviously is like, you know, young men being radicalized and on the fringes of society and disenfranchisement of young British Asian men. And that list is sort of like, but really they were just being fucking silly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were just like really low to the ground, holding bags and like trying to understand the reach, just these people who are trying to understand themselves and the world. And that's sort of funny and tragic, all at the same time. They're just trying to find themselves.
Your final failure is your failure to put things in perspective.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I suppose in the sense that there's some things that take a lot of thought. And there's other things that you don't need to think about that much. I suppose that's what I mean. And the benefit of age maybe means that you can be a bit discerning as to what those things are. Like definitely with my career, I go, okay, there's a character, I can see it and I understand where that lies in me and how I'm going to play it. My failing perspective, but when I was a lot younger, would be like, right, all the research, how does he walk? What's his shoes? Does he like prawn sandwiches? Which is a real thing. People sort of like, what sandwich does he eat? With age, you could sort of be a bit more economic with your energy and how you invest in things and stuff.
Do you think you have a tendency to depression?
Oh, very good question. I think I did when I was in that sort of chunk of time, maybe in my late 20s, early 30s. I definitely, looking back on that now, I would say I wasn't totally happy. But as of late, like I've never ever felt that level of feeling of despair, that sort of level of feeling of despair. And I think it's because of this ability to just be myself, I think the through line with all this, now I'm thinking about it, is the moments that you feel that anxiety, or the moments you feel the depression, the moments you feel those really intense feelings of whatever emotions they are, there's a sort of incongruity between how you see yourself and how you're trying to present yourself to the world. And it can create anxiety because that truth feels so true to you. And it's like, you've got it on fucking neon. Yeah. And then they're going, they can't see that, but it's flashing in neon. We got it, they can't see it, or it's, you didn't make it loud enough for people to hear. So why would they want to hear, so that creates a bit of sadness or whatever. And now I'm just sort of caught up with the fact of not having to perform any other part of myself that isn't bit weird and complicated, Given
your experiences of your childhood and your quest to embody the truth of yourself, that essential truth, how has having your own children changed your perspective? Has it made you more or less anxious, do you think?
Somebody told me this sort of this sort of child development stage from 0 to 5. And it's called Emperor Narcissism. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
It's wicked, isn't it?
My best friend's a therapist, so that's the only reason I've heard of it.
Cool. I love it because it suddenly makes sense of your role as a parent, where this like little emperor is running around, and you're like, I'm so sorry, and like you're apologizing way more than you. Like he's really terrified. Like, oh, fucking, is he in a good mood today? I love that, you know. And if I didn't have kids, I wouldn't be able to conceptualize what that is. And basically, what that is we need to feel the center of somebody's world. But then when I look in the world and I see that not happening, and there's an incongruity with people, I go, there was something there, you know, something happened where you didn't feel like you were the center of things. Whether it's through our writing, or whether it's through doing this, or whether it's through our acting or whatever else, you just want to go, oh, I hope I'm making a little bit of a step in that direction for people who never did, or who never. There's again, like that thing I'm saying, like a placeholder for really complicated feelings. My kids have just taught me to sort of go further and deeper in that journey, really.
Final question.
Yeah.
I've heard from a little bird.
Yes.
Actually, I've heard two things. I've heard that your nickname in showbiz circles with people you work with is Ideal Actor.
Oh, I've heard this.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's really good. Helpful.
I mean, talk about nominative determinism.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
It really is.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've heard from a mutual friend of ours is that you love karaoke.
Oh,
so obviously,
it's the truth.
I'm going to ask you what your go-to karaoke track is.
I would say Whole of the Moon by the Waterboys, if I'm feeling confident. The other day I had a rap party in Belfast. And
rap party with a W or just RAP? Because I like to karaoke rap. So
I'm gonna ask. Okay. Yes.
So
it was
which
a rap party. It was a rap party, and they made me do Frank Sinatra, and I was really worried about it because my makeup artist said you're the first person, because if you do it, it's going to let everyone else off the hook, and everybody was a bit nervous. And after I sang Frank Sinatra, everybody was just like fighting for the mic. It gets very sort of nervous. Like, can I perform? And then 2 hours in, it's like a zoo.
Yes.
It's like people are like, oh, you weren't in line.
I love karaoke with a wild passion. I can't sing, but I find it
What is it about it?
It's so joyful.
Joyful.
Like my husband and I will book a karaoke box, just the two of us, and go on a Saturday afternoon and spend 2 hours.
I mean,
that.
2 hours so almost amazing. Is so amazing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I've just done?
What?
I've just booked weirdly, I booked a karaoke booth with loads of spaces in it, and I've just sent a shout out to people going, do you want to have a little sing song on this? Because I was just thinking, because I'd just done some time in Belfast, singing in the Irish culture. It's like, it doesn't take, after like 10, 11 o'clock at night, it doesn't take much for somebody just to stand up with a beautiful voice and knock you sideways, you know. And I was like, in London, we don't really, after about 10:30, everybody just, it's closing time soon. You know what I mean? Nobody really gets up and it's like, has a sing song. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get a massive booth. And like, it's hard being a parent, isn't it? So like, some parents are just like, just have a sing, I don't know, just a real sort of mixed match of people.
You haven't even asked me what my favourite track is.
God, yes, what is your track?
Skilo's I Wish.
How is that? How does Skilo? I don't know.
I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a ball. It's such,
that's great.
And then the other one that I've recently discovered is In My Range, which is a very specific thing, given I can't sing. Crowded House, Fall at Your Feet, which is one of my favourite.
I don't know that one.
Oh my goodness!
But I know that the weather one.
Yes,
but this is not that one.
It's not that one. It's so beautiful.
Do a bit.
I can't.
No, just so I know that. Just so I can. Just so I know the song.
Lyrics.
No, what's this?
Whenever I fall at your feet.
I know that one.
It's such a beautiful song.
It's a beautiful song.
And there's not that many notes in it, so I can just about manage it.
Not much of a
But the thing about karaoke, yes, I'm coming to wherever that is, and the thing about karaoke, it's communion without judgment.
Yes.
And in this world of constant judgment, it is just a place where you can let loose and sing a tone-deaf rendition of Crowded House.
Sure, true. Although, to build on your point, after a few drinks, and people try and help me with my karaoke song. Something happens, I'm like, I don't need your help. This is mine. And everyone sings along. I was like, shh, please, you're putting me off.
I think you're secretly a really good singer.
No, I'm not.
Because you're an actor, and actors always can sing.
I do that for a laugh though, because everyone's just like, because it was a makeup lady that I was in Belfast with, and Maria was his name. She's got a beautiful voice, but whenever anybody would try and help her sing, she's like, "You're putting me off. Stop it. You're putting me like that." It's just so funny, isn't it? When somebody is just like singing their heart out, and they're like, "Shh, no, it's my song."
Adeel, Akhtar.
Yeah, sure.
It has been a joy. It's been funny. It's been profound.
Oh, good. I'm glad we had a few jokes in there because we both were like...
I know. We were both on the verge of tears the entire time. In order to end...
Yes.
So it's your favourite track?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Why is that?
Because I heard that... What's so funny? Why are you laughing at that? Haven't even got to the punchline yet. I heard that the Waterboys were in the crowd and they saw Prince performing. And when they saw Prince performing, because they heard his lyricism and his ability to be Prince, and they thought to themselves, well, we could never attain that level of pop grandeur. So some of the lyrics, is it all right if I read some of the lyrics?
Please.
Thanks. So he goes, imagine if you're a young Waterboys band looking at Prince. So that's your exercise.
Okay, I'm
don't have to close your eyes.
Reaching into the emotional truth of that.
Yeah. I pictured a rainbow. You held it in your hands. I had flashes, but you saw the plan. I wandered out in the world for years while you just stayed in your room. I saw the crescent. You saw the whole of the moon. Cheers, Prince. Oh.
Amazing. And it goes right to the heart of everything that you've been talking about seeing the whole of the moon of yourself. The whole of the moon of the truth of yourself.
Yes. Yeah, I suppose the takeaway could be something like, we are our biggest artistic expression in the world. So you're in the crowd looking at yourself, and that's the sort of communion that you want to have in your life. Going, okay, you don't have it all now. You might not have all the answers now, but there's a part of you that does, and always aspiring to that, and always looking up to that sort of thing. Maybe that's is that a good analogy, or is
it's
that
a perfect one?
Oh,
perfectly imperfect. Adeel Akhtar, you might be an ideal actor, but you're also an ideal How to Fail guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, everyone. Thank you.
Please do follow How to Fail to get new episodes as they land on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please tell all your friends. This is an Elizabeth Day and Sony Music Entertainment original podcast. Thank you so much for listening.